Well, hello. Welcome once again to Stuff and Things, where I like to talk about stuff and occasionally even things. I'm your good friend Bradley, and today is another pleasant Sunday Stuff and Things. And on this very pleasant Sunday Stuff and Things, we have many stuffs and things to talk about, including upcoming videos, things that you can look forward to on Stuff and Things and Stuff and Things Plays. I'm going to get into a couple little weather updates. I know that's the most inane thing you could possibly talk about, but we've had some weird weather. People have been asking about it. Subscribers have been asking about it, so I thought I'd give you a little update. We're going to have to do a little Seahawks postmortem. It's getting the end of the season now. The NFL season is pretty much done. Once you're watching this video, it'll be week 18, the very last week. So we'll get into that briefly, don't worry. I'm going to talk about some weird television that I was watching, but kind of twice removed. Like, I don't actually watch television, but I was watching some odd things on YouTube. And then I saw a cool documentary about a cool band, and I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. And then, of course, we have your feedback and questions in hashtag askstuffandthings. So let's get going. All right, so last week we were talking about the crazy amount of snow that we were getting. Crazy for here. Remember, keep that in mind. This is the Pacific Northwest, Bellingham, Washington. We don't typically get a lot of snow, but we got slammed by a big storm, had probably about a foot of snow in total, and super cold temperatures also for here. It was about 7 degrees on a couple days, wind chill of -10 Fahrenheit. So I've already forgot my conversions, but I think that was something like -22 Celsius, the wind chill. So anyway, it was very cold. It was very crazy. If you did not check out the video I posted last week, it was called, I think, Winter Hummingbird Rescue. And it was basically kind of impromptu video where I realized that our hummingbird feeder was freezing as soon as I was putting it out, and all the poor little hummingbirds didn't have any food, so I was trying to find a method to warm their heater or their feeder so they could actually eat. And I am aware, and people pointed it out, I think I even mentioned it in the video, that they do make heated hummingbird feeders, but there were none anywhere locally, and there weren't any that I could get shipped to me soon enough to make it worth my while. So I was trying to come up with a method of heating the feeder to feed the hummingbirds. I think that sentence made sense. So check that out. I think it's a cool video, and a lot of people seem to like it. But anyway, it was cold, it was freezing, the snow stuck around for a long time. Finally on, I guess by Sunday, or like a week ago, the snow had melted enough that you could drive around okay. It wasn't all over the roads. But then Tuesday evening, we got hit again by probably about 6 more inches of snow. And that stuck around all Tuesday, and then a bit on Wednesday. Or no, was it Wednesday evening? I can't keep anything straight now. But basically, as I'm recording this on a Friday, the snow is gone again, thankfully. So that's really put a spanner in the works as far as my actual job goes, the thing that I actually make money doing, because you can't really pour concrete when there's snow all over the ground. And there were some foundations that we were supposed to do, but they were supposed to do land clearing, and they couldn't do that with all the snow and the freezing conditions. So haven't been able to work in a while. And it's not dire yet, but hopefully we'll be able to get back on schedule and actually start working again, because, you know, we're not rich over here. Anyway, so that's where we are. People wanted to know, are we still snowed under? We're not as of now. It's actually, 35 degrees or something during the day, which is fairly typical for this time of year here, and it's just kind of rainy. So hopefully the snow will hold off for the rest of the winter. I think we've had enough. And all right, you guys didn't have to suffer through Seahawks updates throughout almost this entire football season. So just at the very end, the season is pretty much over. I just thought I'd do a little postmortem. Obviously, not great. The first losing season they've had since, I think, 2011. I think it was the first 1 or 2 seasons that Pete Carroll was the coach. They had a losing season, and they hadn't had a losing season since Russell Wilson took over as quarterback. So it was Russell Wilson's first losing season. He never seemed right. I mean, the last game they played, he seemed pretty good, but again, that was going against Detroit, who is an awful team. And he did well. And, there are some signs that maybe, he broke his finger. He probably came back too soon, wasn't playing well throughout pretty much the entire season after that, but there have been little sparks here and there. It seems like it's just a foregone conclusion for everyone in the NFL that he's going to be gone. He's going to leave Seattle after this year. And I don't want to do that. Like, everyone says that we should just blow it all up, start over, new quarterback. he's a really good quarterback. He had an off year, and, you know, last year wasn't his most amazing year either, at least the second half of last year, but I think he's proven that he is a fantastic NFL quarterback, and that is a very rare thing, and that's not something you just throw away. I would rather get rid of Carroll than I would want to get rid of Russell Wilson. I just don't know if that's going to happen because Carroll seems almost like he's acting as the owner. Jody Allen doesn't seem super involved in the day-to-day operations, but I just wish there were a way that we could keep Russell Wilson, maybe get some new coaching blood in there, because it seems like things have kind of stagnated a little bit as far as that goes, especially, I don't know, we don't need to get into scheme and offensive coordinator and all that stuff, but yeah, it kind of sucks because you get used to winning all the time with a team like the Seahawks, and even though they'd only been to the Super Bowl twice, you know, in recent memory, they only won one, and it seems like they should have been able to grab a couple more of those. And now for them to be not even in the playoffs, it's just kind of hard. It's hard to deal with. Well, it's not hard to deal with. I don't care that much. It's just football, but if I'm thinking about it, as far as football goes, it's hard to deal with. So I'm hoping that there's a way we can keep Russell Wilson in the building, and I wouldn't mind maybe getting some new coaching in there. Anyway, that was the postmortem for the Seahawks season. There were some good things, some good signs. Obviously, Rashad Penny was doing amazingly well the last few games that he's been back. If he can keep from getting injured, then that would be great. But I think he's going to be a free agent too, so I don't know. I have no idea what to expect next year. It could be bad. So I don't have television. Well, I have a television, but I don't have cable. I don't have any sort of broadcast television. My television is just hooked up to a Blu-ray player for my fiance to watch Blu-rays on, and I have our Switch hooked up to that too, our Nintendo Switch. And then we'll watch YouTube and stuff on that. I typically, when I'm watching anything, I'm usually watching YouTube, or I'm renting a movie, or maybe there's a specific series that I want to see, and it's usually through a streaming service. So I'm very unaware of most television, the things that I guess people still watch on broadcast television or on cable television. And recently I came across this ridiculous YouTube video about fat pets who need to lose weight. And I'm like, okay, this is where we've gotten in the US now. Forget about the fat people who need to lose weight. Now we have fat pets. I mean, if that's not decadent, I don't know what is. But I just saw this one clip, and I don't even want to mention this, that extensively, but I found it ridiculous. I found it kind of sad and kind of scary, but it was also hilarious. If you just look up a cat, or look up obese cat, or cat weight loss or something on YouTube, you might find this. And I can't remember what the actual show was called, but I think the entire show, a series, was centered around fat pets who need to lose weight. And usually their owners are completely oblivious, or they're obviously enabling the pet getting super fat. They're basically loving them to death by just feeding and feeding and feeding them. But there's this one cat named Bo Nugget. And it is the most morbidly obese cat I've ever seen in my life. And there is one shot of the cat trying to get into a cardboard box that is far too small for the cat. And it crawls inside. And then, of course, the very weak cardboard sides of the box cannot hold his girth, and they just burst forth, and then his blubber just sort of overflows this cardboard box, and then he kind of looks at the camera. It's striking, and I think it says something about modern society in the West right now, that we have an entire show about cats or dogs or other pets that need to lose weight. But it was pretty funny. So look up Bo Nugget on YouTube. Check it out. Yikes. And the last bit of media that I have digested lately was a documentary called Nothing Can Hurt Me from 2013, and it's about the band Big Star. Now, some of you will have heard of Big Star. Most of you probably wouldn't have. Because I would sometimes associate with people who you might consider hipsters. Some people would even have called me a hipster, perhaps, back in the day. Slanderous. Big Star was a band that I would hear mentioned quite a bit, but I had never really sat down and listened to them very much. I had heard a song here and there, and they were the kind of band that other alternative bands would talk about, like REM, or, I remember Elliott Smith talking about Big Star. A lot of people seem to really love Big Star, like indie alternative-y people loved Big Star. But they were a band from the early 70s from Nashville. And I don't know how this even happened. I think I was just browsing around looking at live performances or trying to think just stuff about music on YouTube. And I came across a preview for this documentary. And the documentary itself, it's good. I wouldn't say it's the most well-produced documentary I've ever seen. But the band Big Star, I think I like them. They're from I think their first album was 71 or 72. It was just called Number One Album, I think. And then they had one other album, or I guess they had two other albums, maybe even more. But in that initial 3-year period, there was Number One record, then there was a second album, which the name completely escapes me right now. And the first album is the only one that had their entire original lineup, and I definitely think that is the best for sure. That is called Number One Record by Big Star. The second album, their kind of other main songwriter had already left the band by that point, and it's still good, but not quite up to the same standard as the first album. But it's just really interesting. I feel this way about pipe blends, about so many different things that I'm into, where it seems as though I have listened to so much music to be able to find a band from 1972, from far before the point when I was born, that can still be interesting and cool. And that album isn't the most amazing album I've ever heard. Some of the lyrics are a little cringy to me, but again, they were very young when they wrote them, and you can't expect 21-year-olds to write, the most profound things in the world. But the melodies are great. You might call it power pop, I guess. It's sort of like they were kids when the British invasion was going on, and so by the time they were old enough to be in bands, it was, the very late 60s, early 70s, and they were sort of trying to emulate that British invasion kind of poppy, rocky sound. But like always happens, the Beatles were trying to emulate American music. It turned into something new. They're all those British invasion bands. And now it's just interesting, all these different degrees of imitation. So now a band of kids from Nashville are imitating the Beatles, imitating Americans. I don't know. It's interesting, but it doesn't end up sounding like imitation because it goes through that prism and then turns into something completely different. So you could probably call it power pop, where it's kind of melodic. There's a bit of melancholy to it, but there's also sort of a rock feel as well. And there are some great songs. So if you are looking for a new band and you like melodic, poppy, but rocky early 70s stuff, check out Big Star. Their albums are on iTunes, and the first album is called Number One Record. And I wouldn't say that every song on the album is amazing, but I like it quite a bit, and I've been listening to it quite a bit. And even the second album, I'm liking quite a bit too. I think it was called Radio City is the second album. Yes, Radio City. So yeah, check it out. And then if you want to check out that documentary, it is on, I believe we rented it on Amazon Prime, but it's pretty depressing. All right, gang, but now it is time for hashtag #AskStuffandThings. Remember, if you have a question for me and you would like it answered on the Sunday Stuff and Things, tweet at SATBradley with the hashtag #AskStuffandThings, or you can leave comments on YouTube videos. I try to go through those and pick questions out, and if you are a Patreon supporter, you can message me there. We don't have a ton of questions this week. We do have a few, and then I also have some feedback that I thought was interesting. So let's get to it and keep those questions coming, please. First, via Patreon, we have our good friend Matt Marino. Matt says, "Happy New Year, Bradley. I have a question for hashtag #AskStuffandThings. I'm looking into upgrading from a DSLR camera to one that is mirrorless. How is the electronic viewfinder in your Canon? I've heard good and bad about EVFs and wanted your opinion. Keep up the great work, Matt." Good question, Matt. It's hard for me to gauge because, I didn't have a nice camera for many, many years, and my last nice camera was actually a film camera. So that, of course, the viewfinder there had no lag whatsoever because it wasn't digital at all. So I guess comparing it to that, the viewfinder in the Canon R6, which I'm using to record this video now, I think is good. You can change the refresh rate of the viewfinder. I can't remember exactly what the frames per second are for each setting, but if you go to the highest setting, it uses up a little bit more battery, but I don't think you'll notice much lag there. Again, I haven't used a DSLR, so I'm not really sure, but I haven't heard too many people complain when they're coming from a DSLR, and I watched a lot of reviews of people going from a DSLR to a mirrorless camera, and I think most people were pretty satisfied with the electronic viewfinder. But I guess the best thing would be just to try to go to a store somewhere and check it out, but make sure you look at those settings in the menus for the frame rate or the refresh rate for the viewfinder. Thanks for the question. Next, from Twitter, this is at literal_Kiddler. Okay. Have you tried HUTs? They're very good if you can get your hands on them. This is a question I've actually had before, so that's why I decided to pick it out, because I don't typically just grab questions where people say, have you had this blend, or have you had blends from this maker, or whatever. But this is interesting because I've heard of HUTs, HU Tobaccos. I know that they're made in Germany by a guy named Hans, I think, but they're not available in the US. And I've heard many good things about them, and I don't know how much of that has been kind of amplified by the fact that you can't get them here. But I'm definitely very curious about them. I would assume that they'll never be available in the US because, you know, of all our ridiculous FDA restrictions on new blends and things. But yeah, I'd definitely like to try some out because I have heard very good things. Next, via YouTube, we have some feedback from the videos that we posted last week, the Sunday Stuff and Things and the Hummingbird video. This is from Corbin Borbin, our good friend. Corbin says, we would always use plug-in water bottle warmers for the cage hamster water bottles for our outdoor critters here. Maybe that would work for hummingbirds. Also, the cold makes you have to pee 100 times worse than normal. Trust me. It's that second part that I found intriguing. And it's true. The cold does make you have to pee a lot more. And I thought about that because we've been having super cold weather lately, and I'd had to use the restroom quite a bit lately, and I wanted to figure out why. I had my own theory when I was thinking about it. I was like, okay, maybe, you know, you're not perspiring, but I don't really perspire that much anyway, but maybe since you're not perspiring so much, there's more free liquid in your body, or maybe it has to do with the fact that your body, something with the mechanism of your body trying to warm yourself more. I looked it up, and because we're going to be reading scientific information, I will put these glasses on, so I will look more intelligent. These are just blue blocker glasses. They don't do anything whatsoever. But here we go. This is from refinery29.com. They say, scientists have dubbed the phenomenon cold-induced diuresis, which basically means an increase of urine caused by the cold. When you're exposed to cold temperatures, your blood vessels constrict in order to concentrate blood flow around your vital organs and away from your skin. As a result, this shift also causes your blood pressure to rise. So what does this all have to do with urination? Well, we know that the kidneys are responsible for filtering waste out of your blood and creating urine. Urine for our American viewers. According to the National Institute of Diabetes and Digestive and Kidney Diseases, the kidneys filter about a half a cup of blood per minute and about 150 quarts of blood a day. Most people produce 1 to 2 quarts of urine a day on average, according to the NIDDK. However, when it's cold outside, your kidneys have more blood to filter than normal, and because there's more blood pumping through our bodies, they end up producing more urine, and you have to urinate more frequently. Science. So there you go. That is why we pee more in the cold. Next, we have a question or some feedback on the Hummingbird video from Hobbiton Piper. They say, it's nice that you get hummingbirds in the winter, Bradley. I don't think I've ever seen one here in Missouri after November, and the majority are all gone by the end of September. Well done taking care of these little guys. That's nice to see. Thank you for writing in, Hobbiton Piper. Many people commented on the fact that we have hummingbirds during the winter season, and in North America, Okay, so hummingbirds. They do not exist in the old world. So if you're in Europe wondering why you don't have hummingbirds, they don't exist there. Sorry. They're mostly common, or they're most common in South America and Central America. We have some in North America, and I live on the Pacific coast, the west coast of the United States, and the northwest portion of that west coast of the contiguous US. We have several species. We're gonna get scientific again. Let me put on my glasses once again, and we're gonna get into science. Now, this is my bird book. I like to look at birds, and I like to look through this book to see which birds I'm looking at. In the Pacific Northwest, there are several different hummingbird species that frequent the area. I'm only going to be talking about the ones that actually frequent the Bellingham area. So we have the calliope hummingbird, that one right there. These are not year-round inhabitants. They are here for, I think they breed in eastern Washington, and they're seasonal, like in spring and summer in western Washington, where I am here. There's also the rufous hummingbird. They're a very small hummingbird. They breed here in the summer months, but then they migrate away. There's Allen's hummingbird, but we don't really have that. There is, I think that's it for Bellingham. We have the rufous hummingbird, and we have the calliope hummingbird, but we also have the Anna's hummingbird. Now the Anna's hummingbird, right here, they are here year-round, but they didn't used to be. Apparently, they're from sort of Baja California, Southern California area. And ever since the 70s, they've been creeping up the coastline. And basically the reason for this is because people have been putting out ornamental flowers in the summers and hummingbird feeders, and they've slowly been kind of moving up. They're all the way up, sometimes even as far as Alaska. I don't know if they actually have breeding populations in Alaska. Vancouver, British Columbia has made the Anna's hummingbird their city bird, I think. They live year-round in Vancouver. They definitely live year-round in Bellingham. They're sort of a larger hummingbird, as you may have seen in the video, and I just find all this fascinating. Hopefully you do too. And it's pretty cool because they're actually able to withstand very cold temperatures. They can go into a torpor where they will lower their body temperature by a lot, and they can ride out some very cold evenings, and they don't have to use as many calories. They can slow their metabolism down. And they can eat insects and things too in the winter, but they are fairly reliant on human beings putting out hummingbird feeders during the winter months. I don't know if they would all die out if we just stopped doing that, because now that they have a foothold here, maybe they would still be okay. But I definitely felt like, since we had been feeding them, through the summer and the spring and the fall, that we should continue feeding them because they want their food. They expect their food. They're there every single day, like, yelling for food. So I always put the food out there for them, and that was what that whole video was about. The Anna's hummingbird, native now to northwestern Washington and a year-round resident. So there you have it. All right, gang. I don't know, that was kind of an eclectic, weird Sunday stuff and things probably, but thank you so much for watching. Before we go, though, it is time for the very best part of the show, and that is where we thank our Patreon supporters. Those who support the channels on Patreon are real heroes. They make this show go. The lights that are shining upon me, the camera that is recording this video right now, were made possible by our Patreon supporters. When the snow is blanketing our fair city of Bellingham here and I can't do concrete work, your support on Patreon helps out a little bit there too. So we can't thank you enough for your support, but we try. We try every week to thank everyone who supports the channels at $25 or more a month, with a special shout out. People like Kirk Crompton, Private Eye, Glenn, Jason Buckner, Gloria Phillips, Ryan McFadin, Matt Marino, MDoftheNorth. And then of course the Maniacs, the crazy, wild ones who support the channels at $100 a month. People like Peter Straub, Bob Magee, David Gaudreau, and Ashes of the Phoenix. Thank you all so much for your support. Thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Commenting on videos, sending questions in for hashtag #AskStuffandThings, liking videos, and all that good stuff, and subscribing too. Much appreciated. Thank you so much. Please stay tuned for the review of Seattle Pipe Club Plum Pudding Special Reserve Flake. Better late than never. We will have a 9-month guitar challenge update coming up soon. I know it's going to be late, but it's coming up. And then, of course, we have our good friend Kevin's adventures almost ending, I believe, in Demon's Souls on PS5 and on Stuff and Things Plays. I'm trying to remember which episodes we'll be posting this next week. I think maybe there's 2 more weeks, or maybe just 1 more week. I can't remember. But check it out. It's a great series. People are enjoying it, and I think it's fantastic. But until next time, until we meet again, I've been your good friend Bradley. You've been the audience. This has been Stuff and Things on a very pleasant Sunday, Stuff and Things. I'll see you later.